Uh, to everyone who has been here with me, thank you. Not in a passing way, in a real way. I see your comments. I read your words. The ones who share pieces of their lives in a few lines at the bottom of a video, the ones who say this found me at exactly the right moment, the ones who come back quietly again and again without saying much at all. I see you, all of you, and to anyone here for the very first time today, welcome. Genuinely, you are exactly where you are supposed to be right now. Something brought you here. And I think by the end of this, you might understand what there is someone on your mind right now. You know who I mean. You did not even have to think about it. The name or the face or just the feeling of them, it was already there before I finished the sentence. Sitting just beneath the surface, the way it has been sitting for a while now, quiet but present, like a song you cannot quite stop hearing even when the room is silent. You are not talking to them right now, and there is a reason for that silence. Maybe it was your choice. Maybe it was theirs. Maybe it was something that happened, something that did not happen, something that slowly accumulated until the distance between you became the loudest thing in the room. But whatever the reason, the silence is not empty. That is what I need you to hear today. Silence between two people who have shared something real. It is never actually quiet. It is full. It is full of everything that was said and everything that was not, full of the moments that mattered and the moments that were mishandled, full of the version of the connection that existed and the version that was possible, and the gap between those two things that neither of you quite knew how to close. You have been living inside that fullness, and it is heavy even when you do not let yourself think about it directly, even when you fill your days with enough to keep it at the edges, it is there. A particular weight that only exists when something unresolved is still close enough to feel. I want to speak to something that I think you have been carrying in silence yourself, a question, one you have maybe not said out loud to anyone, because saying it out loud would make it too real, would require you to sit in the answer, would mean admitting that part of you is still very much inside this, even when another part of you has been trying to move forward. The question is something like, do they think about me the way I think about them? Let me sit with that for a moment before I say anything, because that question deserves more than a quick answer. It deserves honesty. And the honest thing I want to offer is not a yes or a no, because I cannot give you either of those with certainty, and I would not want to even if I could. What I can offer is something that might actually be more useful than either. What I sense, and this is always a sensing, always a reflection, never a certainty, is that the silence on their side is not indifferent. Indifferent silence has a particular quality to it. It is light. It moves on quickly. It does not linger. It does not return to the same place again and again the way certain thoughts return when we are trying to leave them behind. What I sense around the silence from their direction, it does not feel light. It feels like something that has weight to it, something that stays, something that in the quiet moments, in the spaces between the busyness and the noise of their own life, finds its way back to you. Now, what that means for what happens next, that I cannot say. I will not say, because what it means depends entirely on choices neither of us can predict or control. But the feeling itself, the presence of you in their quiet, that seems real to me. And I want to ask you something now. Something I want you to actually sit with rather than answer immediately. What does the silence mean to you? Not to them, to you. What has this time, this not talking, this distance, however it came about, what has it shown you about what you feel, about what you want, about what this connection actually is to you? When you strip away the complexity and the history and the confusion and just ask yourself, does this person matter to me? Because I think you already know the answer to that. I think the answer is why you are here today, why this title caught you, why you stayed. Let me speak now to the energy of this specific silence, this particular not talking, because silences come in different shapes. There is the silence of two people who have simply grown apart, where the distance is real and the connection has genuinely faded. That silence feels like relief, eventually, like space, like room to breathe. And then there is the other kind, the kind that feels like holding your breath, the kind where the absence of contact does not create peace but creates a specific kind of pressure, where not reaching out requires effort, where every day of silence is a choice that costs something, where the not talking is somehow louder than the talking ever was. That second kind of silence, that is the kind I feel around you right now. And here is what that tells me. Whatever happened between you and this person, whatever created the distance, it did not close what was open between you. The connection did not finish the way a connection finishes when it is truly complete. There is something in it that is still alive, still unresolved, still asking a question that neither of you has fully answered yet. That does not mean the answer is what you want it to be. I want to be careful here. I am not telling you that everything works out, that the silence ends in reunion, that the story completes itself the way you might hope. I do not know that. I would not say it even if I thought I did. What I am saying is that something unfinished lives in the space between you, and unfinished things have a way of asking to be met in their own time, in ways we cannot always predict or plan for. Have you felt that? The sense that this is not over, even when you have tried to tell yourself it is? Even when the logical part of you has made peace with the distance, has there been another part, quieter and more honest, that has not quite believed it? I would love to hear from you in the comments if this is touching something real for you, because I think many of you are sitting with exactly this kind of unfinished silence right now, and there is something powerful about not carrying it alone. Let me speak now about you, about what you have been doing inside this silence, because I do not think you have been idle in it. I do not think you have simply been waiting, suspended, paused. I think you have been doing something harder and more important than waiting. I think you have been growing quietly, without an audience, without anyone to confirm it or witness it or give you credit for it. In the private space of your own life, in the daily small choices of how you handle yourself and how you treat yourself and what you allow and what you do not allow, anymore you have been becoming more yourself. And that process, it is not glamorous. It does not look like transformation from the outside. It looks like ordinary days. It looks like getting through things. It looks sometimes like falling apart a little and then putting yourself back together with slightly steadier hands than the last time. But it is real and it has changed you in ways you may not yet be able to fully articulate, but that you can feel if you sit still enough to notice. The you that exists in this silence is not the same you that existed before it began. Something has clarified. Something has softened in the right places and strengthened in the others. The things that used to throw you off balance, maybe some of them still do, but maybe not in the same way. Maybe not with the same force. Maybe you find your footing again a little faster now. Maybe the recovery from hard moments is a little less brutal than it used to be. That is not nothing. That is one of the most real and lasting kinds of change there is. And here is the tender thing I want to say about that. Whoever this person is, if and when the silence between you breaks, if and when contact comes, if and when the two of you find yourselves in each other's orbit again, in whatever form that might take, they will meet a different version of you than the one they last knew. Not unrecognizable, not cold or changed beyond what they can reach, but deeper, quieter, in the best way, more settled in yourself, less available to be unsettled by things that used to unsettle you. And that version of you, I sense that version of you is going to ask something different of this connection, not consciously, not as a strategy or a test, but naturally, as an expression of who you have become. You will not be able to accept what you once accepted. Not because you have hardened, but because you have grown into a clearer sense of what you deserve. And that clarity, that is one of the most valuable things you could bring into whatever comes next. I want to say something about the not talking itself, about the act of holding the silence, because there is a kind of courage in it that does not get named enough. Choosing to stay quiet when every part of you wants to reach out. Choosing to hold your own ground when the pull toward them is strong enough to move you. Choosing, again and again, to let the silence be what it is, rather than rushing to fill it with something, anything, just to make the absence less loud. That is not avoidance. That is not coldness. That is not giving up. That is one of the quietest and most demanding forms of self-respect there is. And if that is what you have been doing, if you have been holding this silence, not because you do not care, but because some part of you knows that the reaching needs to come from a different place than desperation, or that the connection needs time to settle into something more honest before it can be what you actually want it to be, then I want to say this to you clearly. You are doing something right, even when it does not feel like it, even on the days when the silence feels like punishment, even on the days when you wonder if the holding is worth it or if you are just prolonging something that has already ended. You are doing something right. Let me close now with something soft, something to carry with you today and tomorrow, and in whatever days follow before this resolves itself into whatever it becomes. The silence between you and this person is not a void. It is not proof that something is lost beyond return. It is not a verdict. It is a space. And spaces, when we stop being afraid of them, can hold extraordinary things. Clarity, honesty, the kind of truth that only surfaces when the noise goes quiet long enough for it to rise, Whatever is meant to move in this situation, it may move in its own time, in ways perhaps neither of you could have scripted. And when it does, if it does, you will meet it differently than you would have before, with more of yourself intact, with a clearer sense of what you are walking toward and why. Until then, be gentle with yourself in the waiting, not because waiting is all there is, but because the way you treat yourself in the uncertain spaces says everything about the relationship you are building with yourself. And that relationship, the one between you and you, is the one that makes everything else possible. You came here today for a reason. And whatever you were hoping to hear, I hope something in this found the place it was meant to find. Take care of yourself. Stay close to what is true in you. And I will see you in the next one.